that button. All right. Well, good morning, Stephan.
Good morning, Jaimee.
How are you?
All right, I got my, here, let's switch. Maybe we'll go like this.
Yeah, what are we gonna do? Are you doing side to side?
Uh,
Let's see. I
don't know. I was
There
just
we go.
trying to get I'm trying to get the light. I haven't much to work with here with the light in my office.
Oh, you're fine.
My new Stack Shack office space.
Yeah, the new, we'll call it the new and improved. How about that?
It is. Well, it's yeah. It's new. I'm not allowed. Because I'm renting. I'm not allowed to improve it very much.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Right. It's that I've done a few things that I've installed dimmers. I've installed 3 Wi-Fi enabled switches so that I can walk in and I can say, "Hey Siri, turn on the lights."
That's nice. You've smartened it.
It improves the mood, right?
That's good. Yeah, those are important things. Lighting is I think a huge part of it. I've been in this house for 20 years. So
whoa.
Yeah, like one place for 20 years. And it's interesting because I mean it's paid for, it's comfortable. I haven't done a lot because I'm always like, well, maybe I'll move.
Oh man.
20 years later.
Yeah, I just decided that I was so excited when I bought this condo because for so many years I just rented.
Yeah.
I mean, that was already 10 years ago, but that I just did everything the way I wanted to do it.
Yeah, I remember when you moved in.
Right. Yeah. And it was and when I first moved in, there was nothing, no blinds, nothing. I was sleeping on a foam pad in the exposed to the city on the south and west side.
But you're up high, so it wasn't that big a deal. I mean,
no, it's not.
So very private.
Yeah, I mean, and the glass is fairly reflective, but if you have the lights on inside, people can see, right? Like people in other
like hello.
People with binoculars in other condos, I guess.
Yeah.
But care about those people. But I was just sleeping on the floor in the open room, right? The daylight was coming in. I don't know how long it took me to get blinds. But
they're very pricey and it requires a lot at once, kind of like if you want to get everything the same.
Oh, I don't know. Yes.
I remember doing window coverings here and I was just
It was, and I had my friend do it. So it was like a discount. It was like $6,000 and that was a discount.
Yeah, I don't remember what it cost here, but it's a single level 2,400 square foot house though. And so it's got a few windows, the ones back here, but yeah, it's just, and it honestly could use new window coverings. It could use replacement. It could actually use some new windows here. Like I feel like the windows, we could go with the low E windows. Some of these don't open and close gracefully anymore. They open, but they don't close gracefully anymore. Yeah, got a few things like that.
Well, they have, the net zero building industry. Here we go. The net zero building industry has an amazing selection of windows that are almost all from Europe, where they think about these things a lot harder than we do here in the US.
Yeah.
And, that are made for areas where you live and areas that are super cold, and they're triple pane low E glass. And that, they're building homes now that cost maybe 5% more than a standard built home. And those homes are net zero.
Which is fantastic.
They're so well insulated. And with a little bit of solar, they heat and cool themselves, basically.
That's what, like, I think ideally we would like to do. I mean, we keep thinking like, let's find land somewhere. We're never quite in the financial place where we're like, yeah, let's just, I don't know. I feel like if we sold this one, we'd have a good chunk, but like, I feel like we need to find something, and then we need some time because we have pets and we don't want to we can't just go rent a place in between. So I need to, we'd have to find something and then figure out that transition with pets. I guess you can like back rent your own place often if you sell it. But
Yes, that's my friend Julius actually had, he didn't back rent it, but he worked out into the sales deal, staying at his place until he had his completed. And so
that's
that
cool.
gave him, right, that gave him some time to do it. It's all business, and you can do anything in business.
You just have to get creative. And that's what I love. Like, I love people who are willing to be creative in business and not just like rigid about things.
Yeah, for sure. We, speaking of the buying land and building something, that is certainly something I've always wanted to do. And I spent 3 or 4 years ago, I spent a great deal of time in Eastern Washington. We may have talked about it.
Mm-hmm. I think we did. Yeah.
290 acres. I don't know if I ever shared the photos, but it is amazing.
Just stunning. You did, because I remember we were talking about it. It was like 2019. I feel like maybe 2020. Yeah.
No, it was like 2017, I think even. I mean, wow. It was, the pandemic just warped time, really.
Yeah, it really did. Everything is a big blur for me too. Like, I don't know what day it is anymore, ever.
Yeah. So at any rate, that is still, that piece of land is still there. It's still owned by the same family. And it is still in my dreams, whether it's that piece of land, but the building and living in a beautiful place where I am in nature, surrounded by nature and clean air and beautiful skies. And this is, obviously an incredible luxury that that we're lucky to even be able to afford to talk about it.
Right.
But it is something that it's kind of the next step after living in progressively all of these, higher level baller environments.
Me in my same spot, but but it's a nice spot. It's fine. It's a fine spot. It's just
but the thing is you're at a point now where your house is probably doubled to tripled in value. Since you bought it. I mean, I was just talking to my friend Richard in Gilbert, Arizona. And maybe he bought his house 3 or 4 years ago.
Oh, man.
Right. So he's just in the, way in the outskirts of Phoenix. And which used to be nowhere, right? It just used to be pure desert, like the outskirts of Vegas.
Yeah.
And I would say in 3 years, the value of his house doubled.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. And mine has done a lot of up and down, but I've never been underwater in it. Like, I mean, just even, the big market crash in 2008 and, that whole thing, and people were going underwater. And I bought low. I bought mine at 197 and,
that's awesome.
197. I think it's at 550, 575, something like that. If the Zillow estimate or whatever right now. So, I mean, it's like, it's good. But you wonder like over time, I mean, where it's been paid for a few years now. So when the pandemic hit, it was very nice where we don't have a regular income, source. It was very nice to not have the stress of a house payment, honestly. It was just, it's really worked out well for us. And then it's also nice that, we can use what money we might use to live, to, pay for our living. We can invest in other ideas or, keeping a business going or whatever. So it's definitely afforded us some comfort and some freedom from stress that I'm very grateful for. Very grateful for.
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, it's one of those things where I'm just like, I don't know, like I have the desire to leave, but not so much so that I want to create a new financial strain for myself. I don't ever want to do that. Like I feel like there's no rush. And so until it's a very comfortable transition, which I believe it can be, I'm sloshing coffee everywhere. Until that happens, until we get to that point, yeah, just like stay put and keep working on the, on the all the other things that we've got going, and hopefully something or several things like start to
Well,
work out
it
more.
well, it is important to have a place that is a place of power, right? A place where you can, and power is where you recuperate. Power is where you feed yourself. Power, to
Yeah.
create the powers where it's safe, right? Away from whatever negative energy that's out there, right? Because we're faced with it all the time.
Yeah.
Power is where we escape from, we can, we escape from the news. Right, where we can focus on our dreams, all of those things. And if there's more material burden or stress or complications in our lives, it's harder to generate power.
Yeah, that's very true. And I love, like you were talking about, like being able to kind of create your own environment, and there's a comfort in that. And it is a recuperating comfort. And I do like that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been, who was I talking with? It's the, again, it was my friend Richard in Gilbert, in the Phoenix area there. We were talking about learning how to be your own best friend, right? And that's one of the ways of generating power and recuperating. And it's really the only way, actually, right? Like to become whole is to actually be my own best company.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
I love that. I love that. And it's something that I have some folks who are very close, who I'm very close with, who I don't think have learned that yet. And you always, like, I always want that for them. For
yes.
one person in particular who I don't want to name in case we're, once I get these posted, which is on me, and I'll follow up on that later. But yeah, like one person in particular, I feel like has never been on their own and has never really taken the time to get to know themselves and just be comfortable with that, and
Mm-hmm.
to like be okay with that, instead of always needing to have somebody else there. And I don't know, like I find so much, I don't even know how to put words to that. This, I find
Uh-huh.
this when I have my space and my alone time, and it helps me rebuild and recharge and align and kind of refocus on things when everything else gets a little crazy. So I don't know. And I feel like I want that for other people. And maybe that's not my job to want it for other people, but it's like you just see this outline of potential
Yes.
that they could be um, fulfilling, and I don't know, I just need to focus on me. But,
Well, that is absolutely true. We do need to just focus on ourselves, and then that will create alignment all around us. And this is part of this. It's more part of this um, book that I've just got into the chapters with the Hawkins book on power. I mean, on power and creativity.
oh, okay.
Right.
Okay.
And we do need to have this time away, and creativity actually is the most creative and catalytic, and genius people actually need time, right? Like these ideas, they aren't generated by brute force. They're actually generated by letting go and being receptive, right? It's not by, and so that's the whole point of the book actually, is power versus force. Is there's doing, but when you're really generating power is when we are generating power, it's when we are with ourselves, when we are happy and enjoy and doing things that are joyful. And that creates what he calls an attractor field.
Yeah.
Right. And so that attractor field is what brings in the information, the relationships, the ideas that eventually catalyze into whatever solution we happen to be seeking or whatever creative output we happen to be generating. And the most genius of genius people, in his point of view, know that it is not them, right? It is not them. It is that is creating it. They are just receiving it, right? That all the answers to all the questions in the universe already exist. And we know they exist because if you come up with a question, it means that energy is out there.
Right. That's interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. Like you've already, like if you come up with a question or you recognize a puzzle, that means the solution is out there because the puzzle components are already out there, right? Because you've discovered that there's a puzzle or something that needs a solution. And so then, boom, the answer is out there because you've recognized that there's a puzzle.
Man, that's good advice, or I don't know, advice. It's good wisdom. There's good wisdom in that. Like, and it does, even hearing myself say, I want this for someone else. Like you really can't want something for someone else. Like,
well, sure, you can want it,
but
you're not going to give it to them.
Exactly that. And I think that's it. It's like, I know that, like, unless that person wants that thing too, like, yeah, they have to find it in their own way and they have to bring it in their own way. And it is interesting.
Well, and first of all, they have to believe
Right.
that what they might want or what they don't want, that there's an opposite for it, which would be, like in the moment that we notice something we don't want. Like some people think that they are stuck with their misery.
Yes. I love that you brought that up because I feel like, yes, I feel like some people are stuck with, they feel like they believe that. And like, what's the question I'm trying to ask here? Is there a way to help someone see that that's not an absolute? Like, it isn't just what it is. Like, change is possible. I know that, like, there's science that shows you can rewire your neurosensors, and the like, it's kind of practice, like building muscles, a bicep muscle. You build it over time with practice and consistency and just like doing the work. And
yes,
it works the same way. But if somebody doesn't believe that,
right.
It's hard to convince them otherwise, right?
Well, that's the thing. First of all, there is no convincing.
Right.
They have to be open. First of all, you have to believe that change is possible, which many people don't. They want to be a victim of their circumstance. And, in many of the worst cases, it is, where people don't have, again, we're having a very luxurious, I guess I want to preface all this, we're having a very luxurious conversation because our basic needs are met. So,
yeah. And that is a reality, right? There's the reality of privilege, and there's a reality of like where we've put ourselves in life, and even, with privilege acknowledged. Yeah, I do want to acknowledge that.
We're very lucky, but the funny thing is a great many people with a much greater amount of privilege than you or I are miserable, right? They are suffering. They are victims of their They believe that they are victims of their circumstance.
Right.
And so and they don't believe that they can change or that they have any control over, and that the narrative that they create for themselves is that, oh, I am always like this, or this always happens to me,
Yeah.
or and so there, there are plenty of things that work, that and the only way, like people either need to reach rock bottom and want to believe and are sick and tired of it, and then there's a crack or an opening where they can see something or a situation that was similar to their situation, where they see somebody change. That's why things like AA are so incredible.
Yeah.
Right, because you are with a group of people who have figured it out, right? And it's not without a lot of work,
Right.
but they understand the system, and they understand that it is by example, but people have to get there. People have to be willing to join in somewhere. And the only thing we can do is to live our best lives and set an example. And sometimes that example becomes so bright and shining and so too much of a contrast for people that they feel further dejected, right? Like, oh, that's not real. That's not possible for me. I can't get there.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important to get help, or to have somebody or something to believe in, or even just ask the question, what if it was, what if it was possible to change?
Yeah.
What would my life look like? What if it was just possible? What would that look like? And can I be open to the possibility, right? I don't need to believe in it, but can I be open to it? And so what does that look like? And that's just a question. And again, that's just a mental discipline of asking that question every day or multiple times a day, and seeing if there's an answer. Because again, if we're asking the question, that means, if we have a puzzle in our lives and we're asking the question, the answer is out there somewhere by default, because we're asking the question and based on what we see around us, because it means that likely that other people around us have changed. Other people around us have figured out a way to be well, or to separate themselves from their misery. And I don't even mean physically separate ourselves from what we think is causing our misery. It's a spiritual separation, right? You can still be in a miserable material circumstance.
Yeah.
But with a completely different attitude about how it's affecting us, right? It is not, that miserable material circumstance is not me. I am not that, right? I am a lot more. I am a lot more than I even understand and than I will ever know in my entire life. I am so much more. So I'm in this circumstance, but I can think differently about it. I can decide how I want to feel and see if those things show up, right? Like, I just want to feel a little better today. I want to say want to have one positive thing show up. And so if I keep that request or that question in my mind, then at some point during the day, if I actually put myself out into the universe, even in the smallest way, even if I just go down to my local coffee shop and just interact with 3 people, I might get a smile. I might get a kind person on, treating me a little differently at the coffee shop. There could be anything, but it's like, you have to ask the question first.
Yeah.
You have to decide that maybe there's something different, and that takes mental discipline. And it's very, we've probably, it's very particular to, language is so important,
Yeah.
right? Like when people say, I've had a crazy day.
Yeah. I'm such
right?
I'm obsessed with like word choices and stuff from my work in tech, just
Yes,
word choices are so important, and the nuances in our word choices impact us deeply.
absolutely. Do we say we or do we say me? Right? Do I
Yep.
say my day was crazy, or do I say, thank you for being patient. I'm glad we're here together, right? Instead of like, my day was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's so fascinating because I think sometimes there are folks out there, including myself. I'm not, exempt from
Sure.
this either, but like we get into a habit of word choices and responses and that are somewhat canned or generic, where we respond without actually thinking or feeling, for social norms or quickness or whatever. But there's somebody that I interact with fairly frequently, and I've learned to not say, how was your day or how was yesterday, but rather, what was good, what's the best thing that happened yesterday. Because
Yeah.
if I don't frame it in that light, it will always be negative. And
Yeah, you'll get a pile of dog poo.
yeah, and she's a wonderful, delightful person with so much great to share. But if I don't frame it in that way, I'm gonna hear about the worst news headlines, and I'm gonna hear about the worst whatever, and it's just like, okay, I don't want that in my life or my day. So
Yeah.
I have to construct the question in a way that's going to give me the engagement that I want. So I've learned that over time.
Yeah, I had a funny experience like that with somebody I really enjoy, and he's in his 70s, and he's a very fit athlete, cyclist, and still very competitive. He's still very competitive, and he's got a good sense of ego, and he's very well read, and has an amazing, right? Like he's probably got, I don't know, thousands, tens of thousands of CDs and vinyl record albums,
Wow.
from the 60s until now. I mean, incredible music library. And so it's always fun to talk to him about all kinds of stuff, but he's a little bit of an Eeyore.
Yeah.
Right?
And that, I think that comes with some intelligence, I think sometimes, I mean, they seem to be bundled.
Yeah, well, the ability to judge is a great ability, but we shouldn't be judging things that don't matter. We should be judging things like, what kind of language am I using? How do I want to feel today, right?
Yeah.
Is this the way I want to feel today? And what are things that could get me to a different place or different? And so we're sitting at dinner. It's outdoors. It's one of the first really beautiful warm days in Seattle. And we're at this Italian restaurant, and we're going to go see Top Gun, right?
Yeah.
Just have a really fun night out and it's just geezers, right? Like I'm the youngest guy at 60. And so the four of us are going to go to Top Gun. One of the guys, two of the guys are former military guys. One was a drill sergeant and another was in artillery in the armory. So, like we're going to get a good, rah, rah, rah. It's really going to be fun. And so I'm talking about a friend of mine who is a surgeon, and I don't know how we got on the topic, but we were talking about cars, and I go, yeah, my friend, he grew up with the Lamborghini Countach poster in his bedroom, right? And he's a spine surgeon now. So as a gift to himself as an adult, he bought a Lamborghini.
Yeah.
And the first words out of my friend's mouth next to me goes, he drives a Porsche, right? He goes, I hate Lamborghinis, right? So he's like a Porsche elitist or something.
Right,
He's like, I hate Lamborghinis. And I look at him and I'm like, I'm telling you a story about somebody who just fulfilled his dream by buying his childhood dream by buying a Lamborghini. And the first words out of your mouth are like, I hate Lamborghinis.
You have to poop on it. Yeah, right? Like, why? Why is that the reaction?
And I look at him and I go, oh, that's really sad. Lamborghinis don't hate you.
Right? Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Did he respond to that at all? Like,
well, he deflected and went but then he went on to explain why he hates Lamborghinis.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, and I thought, wow, that's where he wants to spend his energy.
Yeah.
Right. Because he's not paying attention to what he wants.
Yeah.
And where he's spending his energy. So he just gets what he's been doing over and over for whatever.
And that's it, right? It's that repetition. You get into a groove of comfort, and this is how you are and how you think. Yeah. You know, I coached someone, it's been a few years, but I had a coaching client who was really struggling in his role at work and was very frustrated and felt like management didn't listen, like, you know, all the things. And then, and at one point said, well, and I don't remember the exact Myers-Briggs code that it was, but it was like, I'm an NFJP or whatever, you know. Yeah. And I thought, okay, well, okay, you know, that's good. And we are this way and we do this, and he referred to this repeatedly throughout several of our sessions. And at one point I said, how long ago did you take that test, you know, that personality test? And he's all, well, it's been about 20 years. I said, you know,
people change.
Sometimes you change. And just because you took this test on this certain day and you got this result, I mean, you could have taken it a week later and maybe got a different result. But, you know, I just, yeah, it was like this had classified and defined him, and he'd carried that with him for all of these years. And when we kind of like shifted that, it was interesting how he ended up moving from like a back-end engineering job into QA and became so happy and so fulfilled. And it was such an interesting shift, but it took him letting go of that definition that had been assigned to him as a result of his quiz taking. And you know, he clinged to that. This is what I am. This is who I am. This is, you know, these are the things that define me and how I classify myself to other people. And without ever really considering other options might exist, especially after 20 years. So it was really fun work to actually go through reframing that with him.
Yeah.
And, you know, and like it was actually quite eye-opening to me as well, that somebody could take that so seriously. Those personality things, I think there's something to them and I think they're interesting, but not all encompassing and forever defining, you know?
No, like there's no way that the world is comprised of that just one matrix of possibilities of humans. First of all, it's culturally, it's that matrix is developed for our culture.
Yeah, that too.
Right. Right. And maybe even only for white culture.
Yeah.
Right. So
very much so.
Right. And so all of those things are limiting because our preferences are not who we are. Right.
Right.
Our preferences and our habits are not who we are. And the way we think is not who we are. And the stories we tell ourselves about our lives is not who we are.
Who are we?
Well, we are much more, right? We are the ineffable, right? What is the, you know, we are the antenna. We are the antenna that's receiving bits of information from the universe, right? Like we're receiving all kinds of information from the universe, and we get to decide how we organize it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But how we organize it is not who we are. We are the organizing power. We are the receiver, and can generate power from the universe, right? We can take all this information in, we can organize it. We are the organizer and the arbiter of the energy we bring into our lives, but we are not the definition. We are not the judgment that we place upon it.
Yeah, which is
That's not who we are.
fascinating.
We are
Yeah.
much more malleable, if we want to be, and we are free we are free to think differently. We are free. Like, that's the thing. That is the amazing thing. We are free to organize the way we think and feel.
We are.
But the way we think and feel is not who we are. Who we are is much more magical and ineffable and holy, I guess, if you want to go there. But that's what it is. It is we are a spirit that just happens to be inhabiting this meat and bone sack.
Yep.
Right.
Ken always says meat computers. We're just meat computers. I love that term, which is.
Well, we are inhabiting a meat computer. But all the latest research, right? Did we talk last week about the flatworms?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, we didn't?
I don't think so. I don't remember talking about flatworms.
Oh man, there's this awesome research showing, like when you cut a flatworm up, it will regenerate into 200 more flatworms. And some lizards can organize, like will regrow an arm or a leg or a frog.
Or tail.
So what they've done recently, this recent research, this was a TED talk, obviously, but the researcher is working with tadpoles, and he's showing that it's not just the DNA that organizes what happens in the regeneration of, let's say, a limb in a lizard or a flatworm, that there are energetic electrical principles that organize nature. So we are broadcasting all the time, right? There's electrical, like when we're talking and moving our arms, right? There's all kinds of electrical activity. Well, in the same vein, on the smallest of scales, all the little elements in our cells are talking to each other, and you can track that electrically, like you can track the electrical communication. So it's like, it's broadcast. It's broadcasting. There are electromagnetic fields in all dimensions, at the smallest scale and at the largest scale, right? And we're using electromagnetic energy in the crudest of senses to communicate through the microphone and over the internet. But on the, let's say, on the spiritual scale of a flatworm, that's happening too. And what they figured out is how to affect it, where you still have the DNA of a tadpole, but you can have that tadpole grow another eye. Or if you cut a flatworm in thirds and you take the middle out, if you cut it in a certain way, it will grow back, but it will have two heads.
Oh, wow. Huh.
And then if you cut that flatworm up, and it has the same DNA, it will grow two heads, but it has the same exact DNA as the original flatworm with one head.
Whoa.
But it just matters where you cut it. And so energetically, it's like, oh, I'm cut right in the middle. So
I need a head
I can't
here.
decide which end to grow the head off. So it grows two heads. But then, even though it has the same genetic makeup as the original one-headed flatworm, you can cut that flatworm up into multiple little pieces, and it will grow into another 50, 20, 200 flatworms with two heads.
That's
So
so
you have
wild.
done nothing to change the genetic makeup, but somehow you've created you've cut it in the perfect spot where energetically it has a decision to make, and it makes a decision to grow two heads. So it's telling us, and the talk is great because the scientist is very clear and simple talking about, goes, yeah, it's really cool. And right, like, yeah,
Right.
we've discovered this. And the TED guy who's interviewing him, his mind is blowing. His
Yeah.
mind is like, what?
Yeah.
Because it says, this research is showing us that we don't need to do all this mechanical work to regrow an arm, a leg, or a tooth, that this work is energetic,
Oh, wow.
right?
That's pretty mind blowing, really.
This is energetic work, right?
Yeah.
This is electromagnetic, right? And so we understand magnetism in, because we have light bulbs and we have microphones and we have wind generators and we have electric cars. So we understand electromagnetism.
Sure.
But what we don't understand is that we are communicating as humans. Every cell in our body is communicating electromagnetically. And the DNA just happens to be, let's say, a suggestion, a blueprint. The DNA is a blueprint, but the electromagnetic field and let's say our spirit that's organizing it is actually the power behind what's organizing the universe. And so this explains things like psychic healing, hands-on healing. This explains people curing their cancer by changing their mind,
Wow.
right? Right.
Wow.
Because and these miracles happen all the time, right? There are tons and tons of stories, but we don't have a way of explaining them scientifically. But now these things are starting to happen. And, we talk about my friend Larry, who is a neuroscientist from Harvard and a martial artist as well. He and his father, who's passed away now, as a physicist at the University of Washington, they wrote a book called How Consciousness Commands Matter. And they came at this idea differently, not through microbiology, but actually by putting a bunch of people who were skilled at transcendental meditation together in a room and asking them to meditate on a particle chamber in a physics lab in a remote place. And they actually were changing the spin of the decay of in this particular particle chamber.
Wow. That's bizarre
Consciously.
and awesome.
Right. And so what he did was he published his results in the form of a book so that other scientists, if they happen to question it, they could repeat his process. Right?
Oh, wow.
And so,
Yeah.
But the scientific community isn't going to accept this, but the flatworm stuff is pretty mind-blowing and it's simple, right? And what they're doing is they've moved from flatworms to tadpoles, and now eventually they'll move into like mice and things like that eventually, to see how they can affect and do these things like grow limbs, because all the information is there, but what people, or what we didn't realize, is that it's not just the DNA.
Yeah.
It is actually in the information resides in the electromagnetic universe. And so that's where scientists are like, well, that's like you're one step closer to God there, right? Like we are starting to expose maybe the underlying spiritual matrix of the universe, I guess, right?
Right. Right.
This is that flatworm experiment, those tadpole experiments, those are the matrix. That's like where we're starting to get into the matrix and understanding that it is not a mechanical universe, right?
Right.
It is, and most of us, and that should help us believe that we have more power to create and to change and to do things differently.
That's like I guess the first place my mind goes is like, how do I apply that to myself? Like, you know, like, how do I apply it? And like, you know, I make a kind of I've been working daily practice sort of thing on just mindful positivity, just the energy that I transmit out from myself. I want it to be positive. I want it to be good because I've gone through, I feel like I was sort of like innately born that way, to be kind of positive and maybe overly optimistic, but I like being that way. And I don't think it's naive or ignorant to things going on around us. I'm aware and I embrace and I try to activate and, you know, do what I believe in and have, you know, strong values. But at the same time, I feel like there's enough negativity out there. I don't need to contribute to that negativity. I just want to keep putting out the best that I'm capable of putting out. And
you don't want to hate Lamborghinis too?
I don't want that to ever be my response. Right. Or like the person I referred to earlier who, you know, I was like, I've learned to say what was the best thing that happened, or what's good, what's great happening, or, you know, those sorts of, like, frame the question so that I get the kind of feedback that I want, which maybe sounds a little narrow, but it's helping me become stronger, I think, at being who I want to be and then putting out the kind of things that I want to put out. And so that's, you know, yeah. But that's what I think of when, you know, you talk about this, the flatworm experiment and stuff. I think like, you know, if that's possible, if that's a reality that exists in our world, how can I make that apply to me in here?
Well, that is a question. It's the most important question. I think one of the most important questions, as you know, the more and more we learn about the universe, how do we apply it to our human realm?
Yeah.
And I had a great many, we'll call them, in the words of Castaneda, non-ordinary experiences when I was all through my 20s and 30s, and that showed me things about the universe that I didn't really have an explanation for, whether it was channeling or whether it was seeing other energies and spirits, there was a point where I became cynical about it because a lot of people would misuse this type of, let's say, spiritual or non-ordinary experience to entice people into ignoring the way the world really was, or into giving them money, right? It's the Tony Robbins kind of thing.
Yeah, which we talked about. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I spent plenty of time in those Tony Robbins like communities with all the gurus and stuff, and I had a lot more practical things to do, like, you know, be a dad, get my kid to school.
Yeah.
You know, just deal with, you know, make sure I had a job.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Things that we've gone through, for sure.
But the now that I'm in this place where I have the, you know, this place of luxury, let's say, where I don't need to worry so much about my future, or, you know, food or housing or things like that. What we need to know about about this is that it is on us, right? We are an antenna, and antennas can receive and broadcast. And in this electromagnetic universe, it's exactly, you have power and you are an antenna, right? If we just think about it in the most basic sense. And it's like, what do you want to broadcast and what do you want to tune into, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to tune into the heavy metal station all day and listen to people screaming and yelling and being enraged? Or do you want to listen to whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like where do you want to tune? And it is, and whether we think we have our hand on the radio dial or not, we are tuned into something, whether it's our own negative self-talk,
Right.
right? We are tuned into the habits of the way we tune.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We're tuned into responding of like, like my buddy who hates Lamborghinis,
Right.
right? It's like he hears something and then he wants to tell people where he stands in relation to it because he's defining his space, right? Like he thinks he is his belief system, right? And so he wants to define it so that he doesn't have to maybe feel something different.
Yeah.
And so all of this stuff with the flatworms, because these things are communicating, because we know every single cell in our body is communicating to every other cell. It's like on the grandest scale, it's like, well, what do we want to listen to? What do we want to believe? How do we, like, I want to, like, I go rock climbing. I want to tell every cell in my hand that I am so thankful for you because you are what allows me to rock climb in such a beautiful way, in a way that's so satisfying, in a way that's so fun, in a way that feels beautiful, right? Like, do I want to communicate that? Or do I want to communicate like, oh, fuck, I scratched my knuckle and now it's like, I don't, I hate this. I hate that rock climbing wall where I scratch my knuckle.
Yeah, right.
That problem really sucks. And I shouldn't have done that, right? Do I want to spend my energy there? Or do I want to, I want to spend it anywhere else because I am communicating to every cell in my body. I am communicating to every cell in your body.
Yeah.
And to every cell in every human, in every object in the world, I am communicating to that. And according to power versus force, the higher level, the higher your intention, the more power you have, right? Like, so if you're communicating from a place of love, that has more power than communicating, let's say, from a place of even kindness, right?
Yeah.
Like, or just obligation, right? And the higher and higher the intention, the more power those things have. So
it's interesting too.
And the way we gain more power is by this kind of diligent self-observance, self-care, love, and intention to be better, kinder, more open, more loving, more aware of things that we might not understand, right?
You mentioned self-care in there, and that I don't mean to take this in a total left turn, but I have a question about that. So, for me, a lot of practice that I've been doing is in the realm of more internal kindness. Like I think many of us talk to ourselves the way we would never speak to other people in terms of harshness sometimes, or how difficult we are on ourselves. But I've been in a place lately where I want to push myself harder. The default for me in that is kind of like how I was raised, how my dad had these expectations, and like, you do it and you don't complain and you don't cry and you just do the work and take the thinking out of it and just do it. And like part of me, it has become almost like exhausted at being told to go easy on myself. Like, I don't want to go easy on myself anymore. I want to push myself. But can I do that? Is there a balance in pushing myself and doing it kindly? I guess that's ultimately the question. So it was a long amble to get there. But like, but that I guess that's what I'm asking, or if you have any thoughts on that, is like, is there a way to push yourself harder? Because I am exhausted by being told to go easy on myself. I'm like, you go easy on yourself. I need to do it this way to make progress. And so maybe that's stubbornness, but I don't know. That's how I've been feeling a lot lately.
Well, what if you didn't need to do it this way?
Well, and what do you mean by that? Like, what does that mean?
What if you mean you didn't need to push yourself? I mean, what would it mean if there was another way than the way you're thinking?
See, and that's a question I never asked myself. Like, what is the other way? And maybe,
it's not just the other way. There
right.
are hundreds, thousands, millions of other ways.
And that's really like, I think that's kind of the dialogue I'm looking for now is,
right.
it's
your dad was in the military, like my dad, right?
Yep.
My way or the highway.
Marines.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
My dad, Semper Fi.
Yeah. That was very much how I was raised. And I have a lot of value in what I learned, and some mental toughness that comes with that. And I also value, I've spent a lot of time in yoga, and I've spent a lot of time, I don't know, self-discovery, right? A lot of time just trying to better myself and improve myself and understand why I do things a certain way, why I think a certain way, trying to let go of a lot in order to be open to what's possible. And yet sometimes I feel like I'm taking too long.
Well,
I don't know what that is.
Well, yeah, it's impatience.
Why?
Well,
why am I impatient?
Well, this is the nature of being, right? Being a human, right? We want more, we want to create more, we want to, it is the nature of being a creative human being. If we were all perfect spiritual gurus, we could go sit up on top of the mountain and we would be totally fulfilled just being there, breathing in the light, and eating our guru gruel or whatever we eat up there on the mountain. But you can ask, right? We can ask ourselves, well, that is what I have learned so far the only way? Universally, the answer is going to be no. There are a million ways to get what we want. And two, it's like that impatience is an interest in using force, right, to get us somewhere.
Yeah.
And force invariably means that we are pushing away from something, right? We're pushing away.
Yeah.
We're pushing, like, I don't want this. I don't want to be sitting here telling myself I need to be kinder, or I need to be more patient, right? So you're pushing away from something. So usually when you're pushing away from something, you just get more of what you're pushing against. That force gives you the equal and opposite reaction, right? It's giving you what you don't want. And so, but power is in the power is in taking care, being open, and being willing to receive novel ways of getting there that are more efficient, that are kinder, that are more fun, that are more interesting, educational, and appropriate, efficient, ways, right? Like, what is the easiest way to get to what I want? Not what is the most direct way.
Right.
The easiest way may not be the most direct way. It might be have a little detour here and a detour there. But the trick is to believe that there is more than one way to get there.
Yeah.
And that we can feel differently about it. That's the other thing, is like the impatience is an interest in using force. And that's tiring,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you're using up, right? You're directing your electromagnetic beam at something that is just going to give you more of what you're directing your electromagnetic beam at, right?
That
You're
makes sense.
energized. You go, I want to leave this coffee mug behind me, and I'm going to direct all of my energy at wanting to leave this coffee mug behind me. And I'm just pouring my laser beam of energy into this dirty coffee mug. And all I'm getting is more dirty coffee mug. Just, right. Cause I'm pouring all my energy. I'm looking at it. Right. I haven't, well, like, I haven't looked into the future where there's maybe a better dishwasher in my future, or somebody who's a housekeeper who can do my
Right.
coffee mugs, or I quit drinking coffee, or I don't even drink coffee. I'm drinking bone broth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
No,
Right.
that's
It's like, so
interesting.
again, it is a trick. It's like, why am I asking this question? Why, or there is always an easier way or a different way, right? If something feels hard, then likely we don't need to be doing it. I mean, sure, there's things that might feel hard, but what is the easiest way to get there? This is the thing about power versus force. Power is how we organize and receive and take in and nurture and grow our spiritual being. Force is how we direct, is when we try to direct that energy to create an outcome instead of letting the outcome in, instead of listening, right? Like if you're just tuning and listening and open, then you might see a much easier path to a solution. And this is the creative process in general, right? This is why when you're trying to create something, you don't create it in the first 10 minutes, right?
Right.
It's right. We talked about this last week or the week before. It's that the creative process hinges on quiet time, right? It's shaking the snow globe and then letting the snow settle and then looking for the patterns in the snow that show us the solution.
Yeah.
Right. And this is the same thing in our lives. It's like I have a great deal of ability to deliver force to anything I do. I know how to work super hard. I know how to, grind it out. I had a high-rise window cleaning company. I know what it's like to just grind shit out for hours on end all day long in any kind of way. I understand that, but you're right. Then it was like, well, do I really want to do this? Right? Like what is a better way for me to earn money and support my daughter, and where I am actually around people that I enjoy, right? Because when you're in the blue collar as a high-rise window cleaner, you're kind of the lowest rung of service person imaginable. They don't even want you to walk through the lobby in the building because you're just dirty from being on the outside of the building, right?
Yeah.
And I was a long-haired guy too, so I even had trouble with other people in the industry who were more conservative than me.
Wow.
Right? They didn't want me going through the lobby because they didn't want to, they didn't want to be the hippie window cleaner company.
Yeah.
Right? And so I know how to work hard, but then there was the tech industry where I was around people who are brilliant and creative, and there was money and curious problems to solve and characters to work with. And so that became more enjoyable for me, right? To be around people. But again, also then there are negative people, and there are delusional people, and there are petty despots, and there are problems that are there just because people want a problem, not because they're trying to solve them.
Right.
And
that gets exhausting to be around.
All of that, because it's a use of force. It's people not coming together out of joy and creative impulse. It's people coming together to rally around a habituated problem or a gripe, or it's pushing against something versus opening ourselves up and listening for the right path or the next move, or it's like turning on our tuner. Thing is if you're applying force, you don't have energy to have your tuner on.
Yeah.
I mean, the radio analogy is probably the best I have.
Yeah, it is a good one though. I like analogies like that are easy to wrap your head around, because it's very easy to just, I don't know, visualize it and go, you know what, change the station, keep moving the little thing, you'll hit something.
Yeah, it's like, I don't like talking to that person. Who's the next person I can talk to about this?
Yeah.
And this is the thing about what's so good about this conversation that we've been having, is that everything we're talking about is about possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's broadening both of our minds, and it's giving both of us, at least I will speak for myself, it's giving me a deeper understanding of what I might believe, and then helping me get to a place where I know something, right? There's a real power in knowing something, like having the visceral understanding that when I say there's more than one solution, that's 100% accurate. There's nothing, there's no one that can contradict me on that.
Yeah.
It's just the universe is too amazing
for there to be one cut and dry, concrete only thing, definitively. Right, I like that. And I want to agree that, like, I feel that very much with these conversations. I feel it's very much what I need in my life right now, which is really nice and really welcome. I'm trying to not push forcefully, but open my world to more, I guess.
Yes.
I think that's really it. And this is helping me do that. And I self-reflect a lot, it's like, am I contributing to this? Am I just asking, I don't know. Am I asking anything of value?
You are the reason for it. As am I.
Exactly.
Right? There's nothing, this doesn't happen without you or without me. And it's not, the reason we're here is because this energetically, and the reason we keep doing it, or the reason I keep doing it, because energetically, there's nothing more interesting than this type of space that we're creating here. This place, because it is a place of possibility. It's a place of positive intention. It's a place of curiosity. And it is a place where we can freely organize our understanding of who we are, right? Like it's pretty wide open.
Yeah.
We are satisfying the mission statement of the Unconstrained podcast.
Well, and I think to kind of come back a little bit to some of the stuff we talked about early on, and where I'm at and where you're at, like in a previous chapter of my life, I hit this point where I knew I needed to change, right? And this was like when we worked together, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember this sort of like pivotal conversation that you and I had where I was like, I know something needs to change. I just don't know what's next. And your response was, it's not about what's next, it's about what's important. And that was like this pivotal moment for me to kind of organize all the things that are important to me. This
Mm-hmm.
is what's important to me. And I made a little list, and it helped me really design my life. Like I was like, I'm going to use the process I know for making digital products, switch it back on myself and see what happens. And the outcome of that was amazing. Like I didn't have an outcome in mind, only that I knew I needed to be in a better place than I was. And I only knew the values that I wanted to bring with me, that I needed
Yes.
to adhere to. So the values were the structure and the compass, right?
Yes.
And by letting go of everything else and exploring, I was able to really turn my life into like 180 degrees. And I don't even know if level up is the right word, but it opened everything up and
Yes.
everything got 1,000 times better
Yes.
over the years and through various chapters of my life since that. And that took a couple of years, right? Like it was a couple of years of unfolding and talking through what I was going through and putting it out there and getting feedback and evolving along the way. And then, every so often you run into a new sort of feeling like you're fenced in again, and kind of going, okay, I gotta push out again. And that's where I'm at again. And I feel like even though the things that worked before still work in a lot of ways. And what I mean by that is the values that I find important. Those are the things that guide me, but there's always new questions to ask. There are always new,
Mm-hmm.
I guess, like signals to receive. And that's what I'm looking for. And that's what I find of great value in these conversations with you. Whether it's from your experience or wisdom of time and seasoning and open-mindedness and optimism, you bring a lot that I haven't found elsewhere. And I appreciate that. I'm grateful for that.
Well, I thank you for that, uh, that testimonial.
It's just been really good. And it's really good to like keep exploring and to
Yes.
kind of come back. I mean, it's not full circle because I don't know if I'm in a circle, there's a whole long ways to go still, but like, it's coming back to this sort of like checkpoint, right? Like the
Yeah.
checkpoint of Stephan that like says, don't close yourself in, keep it open. And
Yeah.
I don't know, it's interesting to need that reminder, but I do constantly. But there's levels here in some way. There's
Well,
levels
there
in
are.
this. Yeah.
Well, there absolutely are, and that's the whole point of of the other Hawkins book called Transcending Levels of Consciousness, because um, as we rise above ourselves and our material wants, right, getting that just very small changes in our spiritual makeup, right, in our spiritual level, have huge implications in terms of the amount of power that they can generate. It's like a uh, uh, a 1-inch leap actually um, actually gives us a 10-inch antenna, or 10 times better. But a 2-inch leap actually in our spiritual development actually gives us an antenna that is 100 times bigger.
That,
It is exponential.
yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that drives larger questions, right? It drives bigger questions, it creates bigger possibilities, and it also pushes us deeper into ourselves into the more fundamental spiritual questions that society doesn't really encourage, right?
Yeah.
Society wants to keep you on the treadmill, producing, being productive.
Yeah, a framework. Yeah.
Right. And so because we live in this material world, it's kind of hard to get to some of this, but it is for anyone who's aware and generating power by being open and by being curious and by having accomplished a bunch of material things, the more you keep, like asking for more material things is kind of boring at some point. That process, right? You figure it out and then it's like, well, yeah, I can do that, but that's not spiritually fulfilling for me. And so then you ask bigger questions. And the thing that I'm realizing now is the only way I've been able to grow is, ideally, if we really were all perfect spiritual seekers, all the answers should be accessible by us, by ourselves, but what's been efficient for me and fun is learning, right? Seeking out more information about this. And it's not the normal, right? You don't go to school. Anthony Robbins, there's only so far Anthony Robbins can take you.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? Because Anthony Robbins is about material, like most people are like, yeah, I'm going to get my dream job. I'm going to get my dream car. I'm going to have my dream house.
And it feels like first grade. And I hate to say that in a demeaning way, but it's funny because I feel like so often I'm searching for something that meets me where I'm at. And I feel like everything ends at the same spot. And I'm like, no, that was like, I need the next chapter, the next book or whatever.
Yes. Yeah. And so that's where there have to be.
I have some books that I'm looking for. Sorry. I have some books that I am looking for by Austin Kleon, who I love in his simplicity of, so he has 3 books. He has more than 3 books, but these 3 that I love. And the 3rd one is called Keep Going. And it's one of the first ones that I found early on when I was in the Redesign My Life process. So he has Steal Like an Artist, Show Your Work, and Keep Going. And I love these 3 books, but Keep Going was the first one that kind of was like, that's where I'm at. It's like, you already did the, Steal Like an Artist and the Show Your Work parts. You've established things and, it's time to now, like, how do you build beyond that platform?
And that,
anyway, that
is where everything in life no longer is a material pursuit. It's a spiritual pursuit.
Yeah.
And that can get uncomfortable. And that can, because then instead of seeking out material goals, the goals are more like, are more, how do I feel every day? Where is this, right? Where is this? How is this inspiring my creative muse? Is this something that is beneficial to the world around me, right? It's not just about me. Like right, how am because I am broadcasting and the more we take, the more wellness we have in our lives, the more powerful our broadcast and the more effect we have on the people and the world around us. And this effect it's not 1-to-1. It can be many times to 1 if you happen to be standing in front of an audience, which you very well know. You can actually transmit a great deal of power to a great many people and redirect their lives. And so then it's like then all of this becomes a spiritual pursuit. It's no longer rah rah rah, keep going, you're a good producer, you've you know, you've got 5 conferences and 10 talks this year, and it's no longer that. It's like, what is the ultimate path for this spiritual being that is called Jaimee, and that has this limited amount of time here? And what is the funnest, most curious, most entertaining, most loving, and easiest path for me to express that? And those are the questions that I'm asking. And those are dangerous questions, because it might mean that I have to give up divorce has helped me, right? Like, I've had to give up an idea of who I thought I was, or right. And now it's like, well, I'm living in a similar situation, but I'm here. Do I even care about being here in this, baller condo downtown in Seattle, spending, crazy amounts of money this is very beautiful. It's very comfortable. I get to go sailing and all of that, but what do I care about? I don't really care that I'm living in this place. It is comfortable. That's important. Right?
Yeah.
It's like I have a routine. I can get good food. I have access to friends, but what do I care about? I care about this conversation with you. I care about similar conversations with a few other friends. I care about sailing on Tuesday nights, and I care about rock climbing 3 days a week. And then everything else, it doesn't like sitting outside eating a beautiful Italian dinner with my friends. That's really nice, because everybody's in a kind of a place of joy until ER says, I hate Lamborghinis.
That's what,
right.
I enjoy those experiences. With Ken and I, we will have, just yesterday we had kind of a fun experience. We had a customer that received the wrong product. It was a Sam Barsky, the sweater print location. They'd ordered a Vegas shirt, and they received a New York skyline. So something in our process needs some improvement, and that was highlighted by this mistake that we made. But the beautiful thing was, they wrote to me from their hotel in Vegas. So we're based in Vegas. I'm like, this is a great opportunity for, great customer service. We'll bring the right one to you, So we went, we got the correct Las Vegas shirt made, took it to their hotel, left it with the concierge. Everything's good. But while we were there, we're like, let's grab lunch. And while we were having lunch, it was one of those moments where we're like, this feels great. This moment feels great. Like we're just here. I don't know. It just felt great. And it was, I feel like with Ken and I, a lot of our experiences that we really appreciate and enjoy revolve around meals. I don't know if it's the gratitude of food, the enjoyment of flavor, the conversations that we have over meals, the peace that we feel. And in the meal, it doesn't really matter so much what it is, but who it's with. It's with. And those are, I don't know. I love moments like that.
Well, I would say it's who it's with and their state of being at the moment, right?
Yeah.
And so you were doing something that was very generous and kind and fun.
Yeah.
And then you also, in that space, right, which was open, like that perfect customer service moment.
Yeah.
Where you do the right thing.
I was like, man.
You go above and beyond.
The stars aligned on that one. If they'd been anywhere else, it would have been a lot harder to hit that one home.
Yeah. And so then you acknowledge that little moment of perfection, and then you bathed in it for as long as possible over a lunch.
It was nice.
And that's brilliant. And that tells you you're on the right path.
And that, it's like there's so much in my life right now that I'm grateful for and that I would like to perpetuate, right?
Yes.
Yeah. At the same time, I know that there's more. And I guess defining what more means is very much like what you were saying. Like what's important now is not the same as what was important when I went through this process like 10 years ago, or, you know, in 2012, 2013. I
No, it
was in
should
a
be.
very different place and had very different needs, but my values are still very much in a
Y-
similar place, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but that, and I would say that your values can even expand, right? Like your
Yeah.
values can go higher. The quality of the right, like
Yeah.
even your value system isn't fixed, right?
Yeah.
And your value system is situational,
Yeah.
and and your value system is uh, is a, let's say, a set of guiding spiritual principles.
Right.
The thing is, though, as you bring more power into your life, as you open up to more the universe has to offer, you uh, you have will have an opportunity to think at a much higher level, to think at a much grander, higher level. You will have right, like you think about when you, it's just that the higher up you go on the mountain, the more you can see, the more trails you can see down the mountain, the more features you see on the landscape. The further the further the horizon is, right, the further away the horizon is and the bigger the horizon is. So all of a sudden the possibilities and what you've left behind you becomes more apparent. And then your ability to look in all directions increases. And so you have an opportunity, let's say um, your spiritual navigation, or your values can only be as big as what you can actually see, right? Like they can only apply to what's within from your vantage point. So the higher your vantage point, the more experience you have in life, and the more you've climbed up that mountain. We'll move to another metaphor. And if we take the radio metaphor with us, the higher up on the mountain you put your antenna,
Yeah.
the more
Or you can
more
receive.
you're broadcasting and the more you can receive, right? It's just like when, like when we were kids and you'd go on a road trip and you turn on the AM radio, and the further you get out into the desert, or the further, the more radio stations you'd be listening to from
Yeah.
Kansas, and right, like, hi, this is Art Bell, right? Like,
Yep. Yep.
he listen,
I used to
you'd
get
be,
a lot of stuff when I was a park ranger out at Beaver Dam in very rural Nevada, this park that only got AM radio stations. There was
yeah,
one rock music station and then a bunch of like talk radio stuff. And I would just turn it on while I was out. I have it playing from the truck while I was doing, whatever, rebuilding trails or weeding or whatever park rangery thing I was doing. Yeah, it was really good times. But yeah, I mean, we heard that like the alien
yeah,
radio and
Art Bell.
um yeah, there was the auto parts guys, the fix it guys, and yeah, there were all kinds of things. I listened to so many things, financial advisors, love and
Yeah,
relationships, and all
yeah,
kinds of things. It was pretty fascinating though. You take a lot in.
yeah. And so that is our spiritual life. And so the thing is you can keep walking up the mountain, and you can look at the trail, and then you can look just directly behind you on the trail,
Yeah.
and you'll never see more than that, right? And you'll limit yourself. But those guiding principles, if your guiding principle is the world is ever expanding, I am broadcasting every minute, there are amazing things to receive, and there's more joy available for me at every turn. And I just need to open my eyes and keep turning my head and looking at the landscape, and broadcasting and receiving and listening, then that will bring me more, right? And it will change but if I am open to it, it will change it might completely change my goals. It might completely change my moral system about thinking about who I am and what I need to do and how I want to exercise this finite time I have in this particular flesh sack.
Yep. Yeah. How are we going to spend it?
How are we going to spend it? Yeah.
Man.
And, you've already had a taste of exercising this when you've been on the speaking circuit.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is like, you could keep doing that, but then what is the next level of that? Right?
That has been,
right?
That's been
like,
such a question for me. Yeah. Because I miss a component of that. Mm-hmm. But am I holding myself back by trying to stay in the same network or the same pool and talk about things that apply to this part of my life as opposed to this part of my life? I don't know.
Well, this is the thing that I would ask, knowing you and knowing how much people adore you when you are actually teaching like that, is like, what is the next level of learning in life that you can share with that audience or a similar audience or a completely different audience? Like, what is the right, like, what's the next level? It's not just about being a better workmate or being a better software designer or being a better user experience designer. It's like, how can I be a better, more joyful human no matter what I'm designing, whether it's software or my life and that's the thing. I think that's the thing I'm certainly asking myself, is like, how do I apply all of this wisdom now? It may not be in the software industry. It's right. It's and in the advertising industry, I see the value there's more leverage in the advertising industry because you're broadcasting. Yeah. You're messages. Literally broadcasting messages.
And stories and
But also there's a formula to the advertising industry.
Oh, there is. Oh, there is.
Yeah.
And and that's one of those things too. It's like in so many ways it's exhausting, but there has to be more, and there has to be a way that I fit.
Yes.
That I fit without.
Well, I mean, maybe you don't need to fit. Maybe you just need the industry to see that there's value. Like, again, this is where, years ago in the late 80s, I worked at a corporate development company, right? And we did these outward bound like trainings, and it was super high for me. And there was lots of money for it. And, we did hundreds and hundreds, thousands of people at AT&T, and we just would blow people out of the water. But I wasn't whole enough to be able to manage or maintain that level of, let's say, spiritual alignment, right? I wasn't. It was just too much. And it was too much, I think, for the time in the industry. Yeah. Also, it was too early. It was like the 70s. It was like a dream of the 70s that had started coming true in the late 80s.
Yeah.
But then that didn't. It was too much. It was too much change. And corporations went back to we got to be competitive and we got to earn money. And there were downturns, and we're in that place again, but people are more spiritually dissatisfied with what they're doing than ever. And this is, I think, people need to, this was the other fathers thing again, people need to see that there are other ways than just force to get there, that people need to learn a way of thinking that's kinder, that's more open, that's more appropriate for the human.
Yeah.
But I don't know what that is, but this conversation I know is part of getting there.
It is. And
creating something.
It feels like it opens pathways. Like we just went like this through a new clearing in the mountain. Just like, yeah. I really do feel like that with these conversations. And I don't know, maybe that's a good break point for today. Like,
sure.
I got a lot to take in and process personally, which I love and value so much. But yeah, I feel like that really gives me a lot to kind of ponder, and a lot of what I've been kind of chipping away at. It's funny how I feel like the things that I'm kind of working on, whether I've mentioned it to you or not, always kind of come back into play here in these conversations. So I love that. It's really neat.
Yeah, that's the point. That's what we are working on is right in front of us, whether we're paying attention to it or not.
Mm-hmm. It's very true.
It is.
Very true.
Is, and if we want to know what we want in life, look at what we got.
Beautiful. That's so beautiful.
It's pretty simple, right?
Way to land it.
It's like, I've had such a shitty day. Well, you wanted it.
Yep. You put it out there. Yes.
Here you are.
Yeah. No, I do. I find the value and the beauty, and I don't know. That's my practice right now. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate this, and I so look forward to it.
I do too.
And the part that it is still holding true to its unconstrained mission, I guess.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
And just to get on the sort of the more technical side of things, I did mess with the export and downloading of the thing. I might be missing the second half, or it wasn't a whole half, but we had like a little chunk of our very first call that was separate after the recording. I don't know, we had to disconnect and then we reconnected. I haven't found the second half yet, but it might be here. So I'm going to keep looking for that.
Yeah.
Worst case, we start with the second conversation and keep moving forward. But yeah.
I'll just put it out there.
I'm almost ready. Almost ready. I think I was going to ask you too, should we just see if there's a YouTube channel name available called like Unconstrained, or like something?
I'll check. I will do, that'll be my homework. I'll check that out.
And then, I was going to say, I'm happy to put it on my personal one, but I didn't want to like commandeer this work. So I can always do that and then create you can create.
Well, we can put it on
playlists
all those we
or
can
whatever.
Put it on all those places.
Yeah.
We own the license to the content.
That's right. That's very true. So that's something that I would love to make a playlist of these things, but I have other stuff too. So
I'll look into just see, we can create a YouTube Unconstrained YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And then we can just both set ourselves up as admins.
Yeah, that sounds perfect.
And then, and then we can
upload
it, and we can upload and embed it anywhere we want.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, that's
Stephan,
easy. We don't need to. This is the other nice thing about Unconstrained is we don't need to figure it all out at once.
right. It's just kind of take it as it comes. That's really what I've been trying to do too. I was like kept meaning to get to it. I was like, I'll do it, usually right after I get off of this call. I've got mother responsibilities, so I'm doing things, but like, and every day I was like, well, I'll make time for it tomorrow, and then 1,000 things would come up, and I was like, it's okay, Stephan will understand. We'll get there. We'll get there.
No, I'm just marveling. The thing is part of me is just marveling that we keep doing this, and that once we get rolling, like 5 or 10 minutes into the conversation, we're really going somewhere. It's not trivial what we're doing here. It is climbing a mountain.
Yeah.
And it is improving our vantage point, and it is clarifying my understanding of the way the universe works. Like I don't get to talk about the flatworm thing, right? Like it's like those things are, it's a miracle that science is discovering those things, and they do have incredible spiritual implications.
Yeah.
If only people would pay attention to them, right? Like what is the meaning of this flatworm thing? Well, you are an electromagnetic being. And you're communicating all the time, whether you think it or not. Every single cell in your body is communicating to everything else around it, and it's organizing the way the universe behaves.
I love that. I really feel like, oh man. Yeah. And then that's like, how do I apply that? I mean, that's the challenge that I want to absorb, right? Is like, okay, I'm going to start approaching things with that in mind now, because it's new information. It's like new information. And how can I start moving the puzzle pieces around to make something like that make sense in here? I mean, it does make sense, but it also is elusive. So.
Well, I would say you don't even need to move the puzzle pieces around. You just need to keep focusing on the puzzle pieces that arrive.
Right.
And know how, and then when you know how they fit, then another puzzle piece will show up.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like all the questions are answered. We're just not listening.
Stephan, thank you.
Jaimee.
Thank you. Have a beautiful day, and until we do this again, cheers.
Cheers until Tuesday.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.